Okay guys, today we're going to take a peek at my full review of the EnGenius EnMesh Wi-Fi, well this is the dual band system network, but yeah, let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to techgooch, and first I'd like to apologize, my nose is really plugged, has been for several days now, but that said, the show must go on. This is the EnGenius dual band system router. Now this is a two-piece router, so it's actually one of their mesh network system routers. They also have a tri-band system, which is their next step up. This is the ESR 530. The 580, I think, is the tri-band router. So this is, I'm pretty certain they're very similar. The 580 is just going to be faster and is just going to be obviously more throughput for wireless signals. This is an AC 2200 system, is what they tell you. It has an app to control it. It does file sharing. It has personal cloud. That's actually through that file sharing capability. You can actually do personal cloud capability. Parental controls built into it. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Now, obviously, I don't have the devices here because they're running. What I've found so far, it's actually quite reliable for the service. It covers pretty good. It is a two-puck system. Now, this is one of those things that I talk about every single time: is how well is a 1, a 2, or a 3, or even more piece router system going to work in your house? It's hard to tell, because it all depends on the construction of your home. In my home, a 3-piece system runs best. Now, I can add another one of these if I like to. You can just keep adding them. They're like any of the mesh systems. You add a point, it can be wireless. These can be wired together, so there is a wired backbone service, backhaul service that you could connect these wireless or wired. And I've done both. So I have a pretty good idea of how well it works. But that said, I'm going to show you the router. I'll show you, and to be honest, the secondary one I have upstairs, I have it currently wired in. It's the same thing. If you actually go to my Geek Smart channel, I will put a link down below where you can watch the setup and everything. But I do want to show you at least what it looks like before we go into the app, and then we go into the web-based service and do the file sharing. So let's go to that stuff, and then we'll come back here and wrap it up. So this is my network closet technically. I have my modem here, and then I have the EnMesh system router right here. Currently I have the modem plugged in versus the wide area network port. That's the second from the bottom. That's power down below. Then we have the LAN connection. That's actually going to my switch. So I have several wired devices. And then the USB connection is actually going to a USB stick. The actual like a USB stick flash drive does not fit in here. You can see it's pretty tight, at least of the ones that I have. So I actually just use the USB extension cable, and then I'll show you here. And then I just plugged it into the end of the cable. So it works perfectly. Obviously, as you can see, there is an indicator light on the front. This is going to be for use for setup, but also you can turn this on or off within the app as well if you don't like the light blaring, but that one I can't turn off, so it sucks anyway. But that's what it looks like from in here. And the upstairs one looks the exact same. And I have it actually, you can have it wireless or you can have it wired to the wide area network port from the other router to the switch or directly to this bad boy. Or you can actually share off the LAN port that's up on the secondary one. So yeah, that's what they look like. So we're going to take a look at the app. So this is going to be the EnMesh app, and then the second app we're going to take a look at is their EnFile app, and that's if you actually want to use the file sharing capabilities of these routers. Both the primary one and the secondary one you can actually turn on file sharing, which is what they call EnFile, or their personal cloud file management service. But we're going to start by just opening up the EnMesh. Now, of course, we've already set everything up, and so we're just going to go ahead and log in. I already have my stuff saved in for my information, and I hit login. And I should go back, actually. Let me do this real quick. When you actually go to log in, it does give you two options. One, to remember your info if you'd like it to remember. You don't have to have it do that. The second is in remote mode. So if you're actually not connected to your local network, you can actually go into remote mode by just clicking the remote mode, and then it assigns, you don't even have to touch that, it'll automatically assign that, but that's going to be going through, if you're not connected, if you're out and about and you want to connect into your EnMesh system, you can. So you just click the remote button and that's that. That said, now we're going to get into the actual guts of it. Now, what I found is this app is very crude. There's not a whole lot of stuff you can do to this from the app side. There is an advanced mode that kicks you over to the browser, and that actually kind of logs in like the older school routers where you actually go through an IP address. And that's the same way if you want to actually control this from a computer of any kind, you can also do the exact same thing. So, with that said, this, you can see your Wi-Fi stuff, so it's going to show your password and your SSID. You can obviously do guest IDs, stuff like that. You can even go to advanced and change your 2.4 or 5 gigahertz bands. We can do diagnosis, so if you were having an issue, it can actually take a peek at it. You can actually run tests to see the wired versus wireless connection speed between the nodes and stuff like that. We can all do that through here. And I actually did a test actually during setup, if you actually go back to the setup video. Devices, it's actually going to ping all the devices out on your network, and it'll actually show you a nice little list of everything that's connected currently. So right now, I connect to the basement. We actually have 13 devices, and some of those are going to be wired, some are going to be wireless. If we go to the living room, it looks like I have 14 more devices connected through the living room. And so you can actually see what's connected to what. Now, I really have a problem with this, is that I should be able to click on any of these and see the information, the IP address that's assigned to that one, but you can't do that through the app. I find it very infuriating personally, but that is something to point out. Sorry, one more thing I did want to point out is you can see a little gear here next to either of these. If you actually go to living room or basement here, hit the gear, you can actually get into, you could turn off the LED indicator, you could put samba mode on or off. It'll tell you the upload download speed for that specific thing. You could restart the device just independently, or factory reset, wipe it out, and start from fresh. That I do like. I love the fact that they put that information in there that you can actually restart individual devices throughout the network. I wish they actually had a way to just hit restart the whole network, but that is in the release. And then your WPS button there as well. Let's go back. And of course it has to load again before I can go past this screen. Let's go back again. And then we have parental control. I haven't actually turned this on myself, but you can actually use rule lists. So I'll give it a second to load. Alright. And so you can put rule lists to go on here. This is actually the spot where you can actually see MAC address IDs for any of your devices. Again, you're not going to see IP addresses in the rule list. If we hit add new rule, weekly schedules, you can actually limit how much certain things. You can actually do web filters on here. So there's a lot of actually really cool stuff you can actually do with this parental filter. If you could not do it on device, you can actually do it per device through the network connection that it's actually using. The nice thing about this is it's not going based on IP because it is dynamic. If a device leaves and comes back, it may not go to the same IP. It's going by MAC address, so you can't really, somebody leaving and coming back. It's always going to have the same rule filters. And we'll wait for that to load us again. Alright, come on back. And then we have our internet speed test. We can refresh that at any time, and then we can actually see how many devices connected. If we hit you see the 1 number, we can see the living room, which is the other node that I have attached. But that's going to tell you what your network looks like currently. If you had cameras or anything that EnMesh offers, or EnGenius offers, they'd be listed there as well. So, with that, if we actually go to the menu button, this is where we can do a few more things. We can go directly to a couple things. Settings, diagnosis, advanced is going to be the one that we actually click, and it's going to take us to the standard 192.168.0.1, the standard IP that most routers actually use. And then you log in with the same credentials you logged into the app, so your admin and password. However, I'm going to do this on the computer because it's a lot bigger screen. So it's the exact same on here versus the computer. So I'll have to go into a computer that's on the network and type that address in. Okay, so here we are. This is my iMac, but I keep it out here so I can actually show you. I can point to things. So I'm going to go ahead and hit log in. And it's the same information, like I said, as I had on my phone itself. So same thing with the app, same credentials. And you can see there's going to be a lot more information given on this screen. You're going to see all your wide area network information. You're going to see all your SSID stuff. You're going to see everything all on one big page. So it's kind of reminiscent to all the other routers you probably had in your past. Mesh device list will actually see the devices. Will actually see the uptime, so you can tell I haven't actually reset it for almost 20 days now. The one thing about this system, it is a very reliable system. That's what I've found so far. It was a little unreliable at first because the living room kind of cut off and on. However, I didn't set it up correctly. I didn't put it right next to the router when I set it up. So I actually did a factory reset on the living room one, reset it up closer within good connection range of their primary, my primary router, and I haven't had an issue since. So I will say that it is a very reliable system. I've used it both wireless and wired. It does do both. Down here we can actually see the channel on all the devices. We can see the name of the devices. We can see the IP address of the devices, the MAC address, the location, the status. If it's wired, it's going to actually say wired, so it doesn't really matter what the connection is. If it just says basement or living room, it's going to be a wireless connection. You'll actually see if it's online or offline, so it does retain information of stuff that has pinged it but currently is not on it. So we can always go through any of this and see any of that. We can actually go into the Wi-Fi settings itself and guest mode, stuff like that, and we can do the exact same thing that we did on the app, right? We can see all that information. We can force 5 gigahertz, I guess, or prefer, or band balanced, or whichever. You can change this however you see fit. Interfaces, we can see the local area interface, the wide area interface, routes, IPTV, which I've never used the IPTV stuff. I currently have a static IP for my NVR that I have from TrendNet, so that's on that specific IP. Funny thing to notice, this IP, this information right here, does not show up in the device list, which I found very, very odd. But I know what it is, so I did stand it myself because I was having a lot of problems with that thing connecting to anything, and so I created a static IP both on this side and the NVR side, and I haven't had issues since. And that's obviously neither here nor there, but that's why it's in there, to be honest. If I go to storage, actually I could have gone the wide area network stuff. I currently have the N file service enabled on the basement, but not on the living room because I don't have anything plugged into it, but I can do that right here within the storage, the file sharing part. Let's go back to the interface for wide area network stuff. This is going to be the same information that's actually listed on the front page. We can actually go to a static. We can change any of this stuff, but my IP changes regularly, so that's just how my internet provider does it. And of course, probably most of your internet providers that you guys have it changes. So static routes, IPTV. Like I said, this one right here is enabled for yeah. So I mean, nothing that I'm going to use with my provider, I guess. IP cam recorder. If you have the EnGenius cams, I don't have any cam connected, but this is something that you can actually use for there. There is a firewall built into this thing as well. There are settings in here you can enable or disable. So pretty simple, right? DMZ. Let's see. Let's look at this one. I can enable or disable. I'm not too familiar with that, to be honest. Denial of service. So we can actually do denial of service stuff. We can actually, looks like we can do system flood. We can do a lot of things here. Port forwarding, that's pretty obvious. If we have a specific port we want to forward from the outside to the inside port to a specific IP or to a specific device, you can do that here. And there's web management tools, there's backup restore, a universal plug and play. You can turn that on and off. You can restart the entire system from this device, just not from the app. You can't reset the entire system from the app. That's what I found, at least so far. Firmware upgrade. I have mine set to automatically firmware upgrade when there is firmware available, but from here you can actually download it to the computer and upload it directly. Or through the app, it just checks their specific file service itself. So, pretty simple in how it works. It's a very simple or a very similar probably feel that you've seen from other routers, but at least you do have this option for the more, I guess, more thorough back end of it. So that's the EnGenius app / web control. Okay, so some takeaways. First, setup was pretty easy, to be honest. Setup of the secondary one, you want to make sure that you're within, and I would set up the secondary one wireless first, and they recommend within 3 meters or 10 feet of it. Just set it up right next door to it. Just set it up. Once you set it up, then you can unplug it, take it to your new location, plug it in. Don't do what I did in the setup and just take it to the new location and set it up there. It can get unreliable. Like I said, I did have to actually factory reset it and reset it up closer to the main router. So that's things that I would take away real quick. Second thing is reliability. Like you saw, the uptime, it's actually quite reliable. The Wi-Fi range, good. Not great. I've had other mesh systems that I've had. I'm not going to speak brands, things like that, but this kind of sits in the middle of the pack, right? It's not terrible, it's not amazing. And when you're on the outskirts of the wireless capability of this guy, it tends to be really sluggish. You'll still stay connected to the router, but your phone or device will just be like, wow, this is taking forever. So speed of this guy, I'm not going to put it at the top of the pack. It's really not even close to the fastest router that I've ever tested. For a wireless mesh system, now I always like to look at things in grades, but also look at them based at the price that they're selling for. And that's where we come to the conclusion on the EnGenius mesh system. So this 2-pack system sells for $100. For $100, it is quite awesome. I really gotta say that. Now, they claim on this box, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is an AC 2200 system. It's really not. It's an AC 1200 router. It's what it is. I don't know why they say AC 2200 performance, but it's not until you get to the tri-band system, that's when you get to the real AC 2200. So you can almost say that. I just was reading the specs that they give you, but it's not really an AC 2200 system like the box says. Actually, if you go to their own website, they sell it's an AC 1200 system. So kind of weird in that regard. But for the money, $100 for a 2-pack is pretty awesome. Now you can also buy them individually. They're like $60. So like you start with the 2-pack and you can add a whole bunch of them, and it's actually a pretty solid system. Unless you're looking for something that has really, really, really fast wireless capability, unless you need that AC 2200. You know, if you're out there looking at the bottom of the bin routers from like Linksys and Netgear for like $60 to $100, this would be something that I would consider, especially because it floods the home with Wi-Fi and you can expand it without doing extenders. It's kind of refreshing to see some of the brands that are creating less expensive systems coming out with something that actually is decent, specifically at the money. Now this is definitely not going to take over where like Ubiquiti stuff sits or where Eero's home system sits. Those are specifically, they're faster, they're definitely have better range. There's things that those can do that this cannot do. It really, really true. But what this could do for $100, I'm impressed. Now, there are things that I wish that they would change. I wish that they would change the app so I could actually see, like, click on the devices that are connected to each of these and actually see the IPs. And you can actually use that to actually bridge into adding static routing rather than going through the back end and trying to do it the old-fashioned way. So, there are things that they can make better. But, like I said, and like I say typically, let's look at the benefit for the cost, right? For $100, get a 2-point system that actually is pretty solid. It really is. And if you're in an apartment, this is fantastic. House like mine, I need to add 1 to 2 more of these points, and then I think I'd be fairly satisfied. So, that said, that's the EnGenius, the EnMesh, the ESR 530 set. I'd love to do the 580 set. We'll see if I can get one of those sent over, but for the price for $100, look, if you're not a huge gamer, you're not going after crazy things, I've been able to watch 4K movies and stuff like this without problem. That's both wired and wireless. No doubt that the wired setup is faster on this guy than the wireless setup in terms of devices. So like my iMac definitely has faster connection because that's going through a wired connection than my MacBook Pro, which is going through the Wi-Fi. It is something that I have noticed that things are faster on my iMac. So, you know, I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all, but for the cost, it's pretty solid. So, if you have any questions on this, comment below, subscribe, share this video if you can, give it a thumbs up if you wouldn't mind. If you think it was terrible, the thumbs down is there too. So, that said, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you back here for a future video review. Definitely head over to GeekSmart, check out the full setup. That's down below. And, yeah, subscribe there too. So, thanks for watching. We'll catch you back here for a future video review here on TechGooch. We'll see you soon.